setting up a good environment to light your scene while you're setting up your images is important, because eventually you're going to want to render out your model. And if your render doesn't really match what you did when you originally applied the materials, you're going to find yourself going back and making a lot of adjustments. So what I like to do is, let me close this window, is we can do a number of things actually. We can actually set up a 3-point lighting scheme here. And let's go ahead and open up the options panel with the O key and make sure the visibility, my lights and camera are visible, and you can see the camera right there. But if I back off, I can see that there's my light. And by default, let's go to items. By the way, cameras and lights are all picked as items. So if we look here, we have a light that's considered a directional light, and this is considered like a sunlight, and it's really horrible for lighting product shots. It's good for outdoor lighting, but you actually really want soft lights when you're lighting products like this. So what I can do is just right click on the directional light item in the item panel and go down to change type, and we'll go right over to area light. Now you see right away that turned into a square, and it's very much like a softbox you would have in a studio. So I'm just going to move that, and I'm going to set my action center to selection, and that makes my move a lot easier because it moves in the direction that's pointed. There we go. And generally I like to have one light on top, and right about there. Bring that on top. You can see that that does illuminate the shoe nicely. And I might just shrink that down a little bit. All right. I'm going to right click on this area light here, and I'm just going to duplicate it. Right there, duplicate. And then I'm going to move the duplicate off to the side here and probably behind the camera. Act as a key light. Bring that down. Make sure that arrow, that little arrow on the area light there, is pointed towards your object, or at least in the general direction. And I might even go to the top view here and just move it over here, rotate it a little bit, just to give it a little off-axis lighting. And generally you want 3 lights in your scene, but I'm just going to deal with 2 for right now. All right, and I'll make this a little bit smaller too. They don't need to be massive. By the way, when you scale down an area light, it gets a little bit dimmer. So now I can go ahead and turn on my render here and see what I've got. And that's all right. It's pretty flat actually as a shaded model, but it's because I got a huge fill on this side. And let's see, maybe I can just go over here and just move this around a little bit more. All right, and let's see, and I might even want to make this one a little bit smaller too. Okay, the other thing I like to do is I like to add a ground plane in here too. So what I can do is just go to geometry and go to unit primitives, and just in a new mesh, I'll just go to a plane right on top. There we go, that's a 1 meter plane, and I'm just going to resize that to scale it way up like that. And there, now we have a pretty decent lighting setup to work with. So now that I have my ground plane there, I'm going to give it a material name. I'm going to select the polygon, hit the M key to bring up the material, set material, and call it ground. And there we go. Now I'm going to go into the shader, select that material for the ground, and I'm going to reduce the specular amount down to about 1, just so it's not so reflective. And there we are. Now we have a little bit of reflection, and we have a shadow to make the shoe look grounded. So I might have to adjust the position a little bit. Let me just switch over to my right view and just drop that down a little bit, right about there. Yeah, I think that works. And now we have a much better scene illumination to apply our textures to our shoe. And this is going to really help a lot in determining what that shoe is going to look like when it's fully rendered. So it's definitely going to be worth your while to spend a little bit of time before you start texturing your model to add a few lights to the scene, just so that you're not relying on Modo's default lighting setup to texture your models.